Thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate it. Like Kelly said, my name's Autumn. I'm the curatorial assistant at the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles, and we have Duryea vehicles in our collection. So that's kind of the basis of this whole presentation tonight. So I'm going to start off by telling you guys a little bit about our museum and a tiny bit of history behind it. And then we're going to go into a full history of Charles Duryea's life. And I'm including his brother in there in the beginning because they worked together quite a bit there in the beginning. So that's what you're going to be learning today. And I'm so excited because I recognize some of the people in this presentation. So I'm really excited to see them. But I'm going to go ahead and just start the screen share. So give me 1 second. Kelly, can you hear me well? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to share a screen here. Give me 1 second. Kelly, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so the Boyertown Museum was founded in 1965 by a man named Paul Hafer, who was the president of the Boyertown Auto Body Works, manufacturer of truck bodies. The museum is housed in one of the former Boyertown Auto Body Works factory buildings. So most of the pieces in our collection were built right here in Pennsylvania, which makes our museum incredibly unique among other museums, but specifically transportation museums in the state. The museum covers all types of road transportation, from horse-drawn to motorized to man-powered bicycles. Now here we have an ad placed in the Boyertown Democrat, a bilingual newspaper for Jeremiah Swinehart's Carriage Factory. And this was placed in December of 1872. Now, in addition to custom orders, repairs, and the sale of secondhand carriages, the Carriage Factory also manufactured all types of horse-drawn pieces like buggies, sleighs, and wagons. Here you can see our 1872 doctor's buggy and our 1875 hand-drawn hose cart. Both are on display in the museum. Both pieces are in very good condition, and these were both custom-built pieces. Now, the doctor's buggy is a model type, quote, SUV of carriages. Notice the high wheels and the sealed trunk space there. Now, of course, in that trunk space, the doctor would be keeping his supplies, things of that nature. The hose cart may have only been used for ceremonial use. But it may have been used for when a fire was far away from the station or up a steep hill or mountain due to its lightweight nature. And again, these are both on display in the museum. So if you guys come in, you'll see both of these pieces. This is our 1890 Boyertown Stagecoach. This coach was built by the Boyertown Carriageworks and is also on display right now in our Carriage Factory. So Jeremiah Swinehart sold his business in 1884 to Milton Strunk, Horace Fisher, and they renamed it the Boyertown Carriageworks. And I love this picture here. In this image, you can see all of the forges there in the background. Those forges, of course, we have one of the original forges. What I'm trying to say is we have one of those forges in our Carriage Factory now. So that's kind of neat. We have an all original forge on display, so to speak, in our Carriage Factory. Now, this photo was taken in the original Jeremiah Swinehart Carriage Factory, which during the Boyertown Carriageworks era was used as the blacksmithing shop. It was also used for storage and final assembly of pieces. But the business had grown so much in the Boyertown Carriageworks era that an additional building had to be added. This is the three-story addition. The original building is to the left. Those chimneys you see there are the forges. You can see the sleighs to the right and carriages at the center representing different kinds of body types manufactured there. So what I love about this photo is it's kind of they're kind of doing quality assurance there. They're pulling these vehicles out into the sunlight because, again, the building might not have been electrified at this time. So, you know, they're kind of doing a quality check here. And I kind of like it too, because you can see people posing for the photo. I feel like at this time, people were either running away from the camera or they were running towards the camera to get a picture. So I just think it's kind of neat. Every little person and piece that's positioned in this photo. Here is the carpentry shop in the new addition. And I always note the wood forms being stored in the rafters because I'm sure today that would not be OSHA approved. The Carriage Factory is now open. So this Carriage Factory, it's attached to our museum gallery. It's open. It's open every day that we're open. And we are pleased to announce that we have reopened our blacksmithing demonstrations. They are now going to be held one Saturday a month from 10 to 2. The next Saturday is actually this Saturday, the 19th of June from 10 to 2. Really encourage you guys to come see it. It's really, really incredible to watch these guys at work there on an original forge. Now, this is a very interesting time for the Boyertown Carriageworks. In 1914, they took a bold step towards modernization by building their first truck body. The Carriageworks built this box, not the Model T that it's mounted on. At that time, that would have been considered the body. Originally, this was built for a cigar company in Boyertown, but the truck was later sold to a printing company in Oley, which is the logo that's painted on it now. Now, what's important to remember about us, the Boyertown Auto Body Works, is so many automobile manufacturers in the early days, literally over 1,000, did not survive long. Many also started as carriage builders. This company, our company, the Boyertown Carriageworks / Boyertown Auto Body Works, were able to stay in business until 1990, building truck bodies. So that is a very successful career. I would say one of the other successful car builders that started in carriages would be Studebaker, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. This is another truck body by the Boyertown Carriageworks. This one was done in 1919. You can see Nelson Stauffer, butter, eggs, and poultry. So, of course, this was built for a Pennsylvania Dutch company, certainly. The Boyertown Carriageworks was purchased in 1926 by B. Frank Hafer, J. George Hoffman, and W. Howard Schwartz, and it was renamed the Boyertown Auto Body Works, which is what we're known for today, our truck bodies built during this time period. Now, the Boyertown Auto Body Works built all different types of truck bodies, including novelty designs and food trucks. I really, really like this food/milk truck here. This is marketing in the early days. You know what you're getting when it's coming down the street here. Here we have a couple more I'm going to show you guys. This is the Capital Awning Company. You can see the little awning on the top there. I love this truck. It's so cute. Here we have a loaf of bread for Shiable's Honey Boy Bread. And I should mention that all of these photos were taken right in Boyertown. So when you guys drive through town, you can see a lot of the buildings in the background here. This is the Chow Cup truck. We did do a couple Asian inspired food trucks, and this was one of them. They were out of Brooklyn, New York. Here's the hole-in-one donut truck. And the donut kitchen truck. Apparently donut food trucks were popular. We built so many donut food trucks. It's ridiculous, but I love this one because of all the detail on it, that artwork there on the side. It's just really, really a stunning piece. When you guys come into the museum, you will be able to see examples of these food trucks that we built right at the Boyertown Auto Body Works. We have a whole section in the back of our museum gallery that is committed to trucks that were built by the Auto Body Works. So it's very, very cool. Mr. Salty truck. This truck is part of the museum's collection. This is a permanent fixture in our collection, and everyone knows the Mr. Salty truck. It's a very, very famous piece in our collection. This here is the Boyertown Auto Body Works sometime before the late 1960s. So again, when you guys walk into the gallery, you are going to be standing right where this photo was taken and these trucks were manufactured. The Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles was founded in 1965. After the museum closed, or after the Boyertown Auto Body Works closed, excuse me, the museum relocated to 85 South Walnut Street. That's where we are today. And I have to tell you, this picture is dated. We are getting our facade currently worked on, and it is looking amazing. So hopefully by the time you guys come up to the museum facade will look a little more spruced up than in this picture. This is our 1938 Reading Diner, once located in Fegley's Family Restaurant. It now sits in the museum's gallery as a permanent exhibit. Definitely probably the most popular thing in our museum. We have visitors that come in that grew up eating in this restaurant, which now they can come in and visit. So it's really, really a cool experience. And I love this photo. This is the diner interior, which is almost all original, which is really impressive. This is a 1921 Shepherd Steel building gas station, pictured here during the 50s in Strausstown, Berks County. This is now in our museum gallery as a permanent exhibit. And here you are. So we did renovate this Sunoco station. Usually we don't restore or renovate anything in our museum gallery, but for this piece, we wanted to really show you guys what it would have looked like at that time. Okay, so now we're going to get into Charles here. And he is considered the father of the automobile. I'm going to use a lot of quotes in this presentation because there are just really a lot of neat quotes from Charles and his family that kind of explain what was going on. So let's see here. We'll get started. So there you have Charles Edgar Duryea, and he was born December 15th, 1861. And he actually lived until September of 1938. Then you have his brother there, the smaller image. That is J. Frank Duryea. And he was born of October of 1869. And he passed away in 1967. Now, the top right photo there is both the gentlemen in one of their vehicles that they built together. I absolutely love that photo. It's just a really, really neat photo. Now, I'm going to give you guys one quote here to start by Charles. Quote, "It is my belief that I designed and built the first gasoline automobile actually to run in America, sold the first car on this side of the Atlantic, did the first automobile advertising, and won the first 2 American races." So that really kind of says it all about Charles and what he did. Which again, he is credited for the first gasoline automobile. Now, near the end of the 19th century, many Americans tinkered with the concept of horseless carriages, but Charles and his brother were the first to commercially manufacture automobiles in the United States. That's really the second most important piece of this whole presentation, that they were the first to commercially manufacture automobiles. Now, Charles was a strong promoter of automobiles, and he was the first president of the American Motor League. He served from 1895 to 1902. In October of 1900, Charles chaired the first meeting to organize what became the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers. In 1905, he became a founding member of the Society of Automobile Engineers. You can see all the little placards here, and actually even the standards for the Society of Automobile Engineers there that were printed, I believe, in the early 1900s. So Charles was really very involved in these foundations because he felt strongly about the automobile and what it could do for America. Here we have Charles as a young man, very young, I think, in this photo, with his high-wheel bicycle. So Charles and his brother actually started out in the bicycle business. Well, Charles started it first. So we're going to talk about that here a little bit, as a lot of manufacturers did. a lot of early automobile builders, they started out in the bicycle business. It just made sense. And I should add, we do have high wheel bicycles in our collection. We have quite a few, and I really encourage you guys to check those out when you come in. They're really, really neat. All built in the Northeast portion of the country. So, like I said, as was the case with many of the early automobile builders, Charles started out in the bicycle business. In the 1880s, he developed the cushion tire, which was an improved hollow bicycle tire that was wider at the tread than at the wheel rim. He also held patents for improved rubber tires that had better elasticity than standard rubber tires. And you'll hear me say a lot throughout this presentation about patents. This man patented everything, okay? He truly was an inventor and a tinkerer. Now, he patented Never Leak. You can see it there on the left of the slide. That is a self-seal liquid marketed to stop small punctures in tire tubes from leaking. So that's really, really kind of neat. For this time, that was incredible. Now, between 1886 and 1891, Duryea was granted 11 patents for bicycles and equipment. Again, really quite a bit of patents there. You can see at the top, and I know some of these are blurry, you can see at the top, that's a general patent there for a velocipede, which is an early term for a bicycle. And then down at the bottom there, you have his patent for a tandem bike, which he patented in 1889. Now, this one is so cool. Charles Duryea invented a radically new spring frame suspension bicycle called the Duryea Sylph. Okay, it was hinged at the crank and had handlebars that swung around the rider's hips like a chair's armrest. Okay, you do not see this today, guys. This is really, really kind of very, this is just crazy for the time period. Really kind of neat. You can see those handlebars there and how they are around the side. They would turn. And this Sylph had no front fork. So it's really interesting to just check out this bike and compare it to a bike we know today. Now, he attempted to produce the Sylph at the Herbert S. Owen Machine Shop in Washington, D.C., but he had little success there with that. But Duryea was a women's rights advocate. And in 1895, while working at Owen's shop, he patented America's first drop frame women's bicycle. The U-shaped frame allowed ample room for ladies' skirts while pedaling. Now, again, this is phenomenal. He patented America's first drop frame bike for women. At this time, there was a huge women's movement going on, and he was really passionate about that. And he was passionate about making bikes for women. At the top there is his patent for a woman's bike. And at the bottom is a general patent for a velocipede that he patented while he worked at the S. Owen Machine Shop. And again, when you're looking at these bikes, real quick, note that frame. We had to be able to get on with our flowing skirts there. And you can also see on the bicycle image to the left how it has that wooden frame over the back wheel. That is to keep our skirts from getting caught in the spokes. Now, since the Owen Machine Shop would not produce the Sylph in 1888, Charles organized the Duryea Manufacturing Company, and that was to produce his spring-framed safety bicycle himself. So he said, the heck with this guy, and he moved his operations to New Jersey, contracted a sewing machine shop to build 120 of his unusual bikes. But production was so slow that he left Jersey and returned to his home in Peoria, Illinois. In Peoria, he partnered with Harry Roos of Roos Hazard Company, which was a Peoria Heights bicycle manufacturer, and they formed the Roos Duryea Cycle Company in May of 1890. Now, Roos accepted a massive order for 3,000 bicycles of a more conventional design shortly after this, and the Sylph production in Peoria was halted. Roos Duryea moved then their operations to Ames Manufacturing Company, which was located in Chicopee, Massachusetts. And he did that in late 1890. So again, Charles moves away from that manufacturing plant in Illinois and moves to Massachusetts to further develop this Sylph bicycle that he's passionate about. Now, in 1890, his younger brother, Frank, came to help him build the Sylph at Ames Manufacturing. And Frank also began to help Charles build a horseless carriage, which is really where things kick off for the brothers here. But I do love these two ads. They're just gorgeous. And of course, they're featuring, women, because at this time, again, he was passionate about that. And they were sold for $100. So just keep that in mind, that at that time, that was actually kind of expensive. Now, again, this is where things kick off for the brothers. This is when they start becoming known for what they're developing. And I'm going to give you one quote at a time here. We'll start with that top one from Frank. Quote, about the 1st of May, 1892, when Charles asked me to go to work with him, he made preliminary sketches or drawings, indicating in a general way his conception of what a motor vehicle should be. Now, really, it began with a plan that Charles had conceived in August of 1891. Really, he just bought a carriage for $70 and then started designing all these kind of pieces to add on to this carriage that he had built to make it a one-cylinder gasoline 2-cycle engine. Frank was very skilled as a mechanic and an engineer, so that's where he came into play. And I'm going to read you a second quote here. The original draft of the plans was of the vehicle of 92. The original draft of the plans was of the vehicle of 92, prepared by me, and the details were partly worked up for me by draftsmen in the employ of the Ames Manufacturing Co. of Chicopee, Massachusetts. My brother did considerable of the machine work and was quite able to make parts as well as I could. So many parts were made from the roughest pencil sketches or without any drawings at all. That's really incredible that him and Frank were able to make these parts really from sometimes no drawing at all. So kind of off the top of their head. Really very impressive. Now, here's a couple patents here. Those first on the left are the 1893 Duryea pneumatic tire, which is a huge deal. Really ahead of his time on that one. Then the second sketch, so to speak, you see there is of the 93 to 94 Duryea spray carburetor. Now, this vehicle was completed in September of 1893. The first attempt was underpowered. It stalled easily and the drive belt slipped on even a fairly level road, which was no good. But by January 1894, they had built an improved and more powerful vehicle in their Springfield, Massachusetts machine shop. So this vehicle was really developed just in a machine shop. These here are photos of the 1893 Duryea. So this is the first Duryea that was ever created in 1893 by the brothers. And really, it's an 1893, 1894 vehicle because it was really being developed really late 93 into early 94. Now, in 1894, Frank built another automobile with a 4-cycle engine. Charles patented the road vehicle design and Frank patented the engine design. This is the patent there, the 1895 patent of the vehicle that we're discussing here, the first Duryea vehicle. So again, you can see the brothers in their vehicle. That is the patent for, quote, a road vehicle. and it was patented, you can see, in June of 1895. Now, what's really neat about this vehicle is that it won races. And again, this is such an early vehicle, so it's incredible how successful it was in a number of races. And this is the first one I'm going to talk about here. This car became the winner of America's first big road race, the 1895 Chicago Times Herald race. Now, the race was approximately 92 miles long. The contest was run in Chicago from Jackson Park to Evanston and back. So that's a very long distance of 92 miles. It was run on Thanksgiving Day, and it was made even more difficult by a sudden storm that dropped a foot of heavy wet snow. Really difficult for us today to drive through a foot of snow in some vehicles, let alone in an 1894 or 1895 Duryea. Now, here's a quote from Charles about the day and the race. Quote, Tuesday at 8 p.m. there was 8 inches on the ground, but it snowed most of the night, probably 18 to 20 inches before it quit. A hot sun next day melted the top snow, and it froze that clear night. Burrow reported 12 on the ground at 8 p.m. Wednesday evening. That frozen crust carried men in sleighs on Thursday morning. Horses and autos broke through. By noon, it began to soften. Was slushy by dark when it began to rain a little. The snow dumped into the streets from roofs and walks made them indescribable. Much better in the open space. Charles Duryea. So it was a very difficult race, and many contestants could not even make it to the start of the race because of the terrain. But amazingly, the Duryea was able to outpace a light wagon with 2 horses that attempted to follow along the slush and mud-rutted roads. So despite these hardships, Frank, who was the driver, finished 24 minutes ahead of the second place, which was Mueller-Bentz, which was driven across the finish line by an exhausted ride-along umpire, and that is after he collapsed from exposure. So literally people were collapsing of exposure in the elements during this race, but Frank in the 1895 Duryea crossed the finish line. So you can see there on the left, Frank Duryea with his assistant driver, Arthur White, and they're in their 1895 Duryea. You can see the onlookers in the background, probably amazed that they made it that far. And look on the ground there. You can see the slushy snow there. It's incredible. On the right there, you can see them literally crossing the finish line there in Chicago. And I love that quote there at the top. This car and the later models were meant to become what Ford's Model T became. And he says that later on in life, and he truly did want it to be an everyday man's vehicle. Now, the first company in America to manufacture gasoline automobiles was the Duryea Motor Wagon Company, organized in Springfield, Massachusetts, by Charles Duryea in 1895. So this is really, truly, again, what they are known for. He founded this company, the Duryea Motor Wagon Company, and at this time, you might be confused. People really changed names of businesses quite frequently during the late 1800s and early 1900s. So if things weren't working out, they switched hands, they changed names, they repartnered. So it's kind of hard to keep track of, but this is really when things took off for Charles and Frank. So this was the Duryea Motor Wagon Company. They, again, were founded in Springfield, Massachusetts, and 13 cars with belt drive were produced. 13. One of these cars won, actually, the 1896 London to Brighton Emancipation Run in England. That was a big deal. It's a huge run. Very popular at the time, and it was really quite a surprise when the yellow-wheeled Duryea came from the back and beat the French racers, which were, of course, favored in this race. So a couple images here that I really love. You can see the 2 advertisements, of course, for the Duryea Motor Wagon Company. So you can see they're doing motor wagons and motors, automobile vehicles of all kinds. Then at the bottom there, that is actually an interior shot of the Duryea Motor Wagon Company factory in Massachusetts, and that was taken in 1896. Here you have the brothers, Charles on the left and Frank on the right, in a Duryea motor wagon. This photo was taken in Springfield, Massachusetts. The Duryea Motor Wagon Company began to produce three-wheeled vehicles, which is really what they're kind of known for. And I love the three-wheeled vehicles. They are so unique. And they started producing those in 1898 and moved to Peoria, Illinois. Now, soon after that, the brothers split up and each continued their own automotive career. Frank moved back to Massachusetts and partnered with the Stevens Arms and Tool Company, forming Stevens Duryea. There in that photo, you can see a 1904 Stevens Duryea. Now, I will tell you, Stevens Duryeas are very, very nice vehicles, perhaps a little bit more well-known than the vehicles that Charles produced. And really, you see a lot of, I've shown you guys a lot of photos of the brothers together, but really they didn't get along at all. So this was really a much needed separation by this point. They were much better and much more successful on their own. Now, Charles came to Reading, Pennsylvania, and this is where our history with Charles begins. And what we really appreciate about Charles was that he built all these three-wheeled vehicles right here in our backyard in Reading, Pennsylvania. So he came to Reading, and he gained financial backing from a man named Herbert Sternberg, and he was the son of a wealthy ironmaster at the time, Hervey Sternberg. He was actually the richest man in the city at the time. But still, organizing a company to build self-propelled vehicles was not easy, okay? Automobiles were considered by most businessmen to be expensive novelties and not something to be taken too seriously, and certainly not a good investment. People at this time, believe it or not, thought these were silly, that this was not going to take off, and like I mentioned, it was a novelty. It was just something to do for a little bit here for rich people to purchase. Really didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. Now, these photos are amazing. The top right one there is Herbert and his wife in a three-wheel Duryea. That picture was taken in Reading. Actually, all these pictures were taken in Reading, Pennsylvania. The one on the left is Charles with his wife and his daughter. And then in the bottom right photograph there is Charles, his daughter, and his wife. And you can see that there's a rear-facing seat there, which I think is kind of cool. And this is another quote by Charles. Quote, "I came to Reading in February 1900 and agreed with Herbert to incorporate and make my type of autos in Reading." Now, that's a good thing to note there is how he says my type of auto. Charles was such a unique person when it came to manufacturing automobiles. He had his own visions. He really went his own way and was not swayed by what was trendy or happening at the time. He really just wanted to do what he wanted to do and what he felt was going to work out. Now, his type of autos were designed to be small, simple, affordable, and practical. And you'll see that on these on a lot of advertisements you see for the Duryea. You can see that one here on the right-hand side, the practical auto. He wants people to know it's just a practical, simple design that's going to be affordable for the everyday person. The Duryea Power Company of Reading was incorporated April 6, 1900. Herbert became president, Charles became the vice president and secretary, and a man named Henry Milliholland was the treasurer. However, starting the company was no simple task at all, okay? It became very difficult. Duryea was frustrated by the difficulties he faced in obtaining factory space, tools, and financing. Charles says, quote, "Men, money, and machines were not forthcoming. Factories believed to be available were not. So it was a frustrating time for Charles. You know, he felt good initially here in, early 1900. He partners up with Herbert. He's feeling great. And then slowly realizes, oh, darn, I've gotten myself really far into this and I need workers. I need people to build these vehicles. Now, in spite of that, well, actually, before we go to that side, I'll do one more quote here. Despite the startup problems, the Duryea Power Company was soon producing on an average 1 car a week. Okay, so that's really pretty incredible for a small operation here. And I just want to note on that left-hand advertisement how it says a carriage, not a tricycle. I love that. You have to point that out. Now, a lot of you guys may have heard of something called the Duryea Hill Climb. And the Duryea Hill Climb is very popular in Berks County. It still goes on today. You can take, your auto of today up and down this hill. And what the heck is it all about? Well, to the outside observer, the hill climbs may seem out of place due to the nature of the area, okay? But there's a lot of long history there. In 1900, when he founded the Duryea Power Company, he tested all of his Duryea vehicles up this unpaved winding road that started at City Park up to Mount Penn. The road was then paved in the 1930s and in 1941 was renamed Duryea Drive to honor him. So what Charles did was he took every final vehicle that was assembled at his company, at the power company, and he took it on a test up this hill. If the vehicle did not make the hill climb, okay, if it did not make it the whole way up, it was trashed and it was completely started from scratch. He was really big on quality assurance, and this was a way for him to know that this vehicle was going to make it around all the terrain in Berks County and, of course, throughout the country, because at this time, roads were not paved. So it was really important to make sure a vehicle could get on all these unpaved winding roads. So there on the left, you can see a map of the actual route there that the vehicles had to go. And this was in 1900. I mean, that is really a long way to drive a vehicle of this time period. Then on the bottom left, you see there the placard sign for Duryea Drive. Here, Duryea first proved automobiles could consistently climb mountains. I love that. Now, even though he had some startup problems, the difficulties with production did not prevent him from having a space at America's first major automobile show, which was held at Madison Square Garden on November 3rd, 1900. I love this quote there by Charles on the side. We had the best in the land, even if they were handmade with meager equipment. So the Duryea Power Company, even though it was producing 1 vehicle a week, which was slower than some other manufacturers of the time, he was invited to this show at Madison Square Garden, which is incredible that he was invited to this auto show. And I love these images here. Look at all those wagons there. It's just incredible to think about that show. I go to the auto shows now, and comparing the two is just really cool. So he was really proud of this. Charles was really proud that he was able to display his vehicles at this show. Now, Charles always looked to the future, and he favored forward-thinking design over the accepted practices of the time. Even his production methods introduced a new idea. Like I said, he was not your traditional man, and he was not your traditional engineer by any means. He really wanted to produce what he called the scientific automobile. You can see the ad here on the left for the scientific auto. Quality, simplicity, accessibility, safety, one-hand control. We'll get to that in a little bit. Proven design, large rear wheels, and power. These features make the Duryea cheap to maintain. Do you want your money's worth? That was a big deal at this time because, again, if you were going to buy one of these vehicles, you wanted to make sure that it lasted, for quite some time and you got your money's worth. On the right there, you can see Charles operating one of his three-wheeled vehicles. The Duryea Power Company built autos in Reading from parts that were manufactured by others located elsewhere, a method that we now refer to as outsourcing. Ford took this idea and added a moving assembly line. In doing so, changed the world. So really, Charles was outsourcing before, before Henry Ford. Now you can see a bunch of designs there on that left advertisement. You have a Surrey, you have a Phaeton, you have all different kinds of vehicles there that Charles manufactured. He did 3-cylinder engines. He was doing just all different kinds of things to develop what he called the graceful Duryea. Again, you'll see on that ad, a carriage, not a car. Good, not gaudy. I love that. For all members of the family, because again, we have to remember, he was a women's rights advocate. So he was advocating pretty frankly that he was, advertising and manufacturing these vehicles for women. I love the one sentence there on that right side advertisement. Duryea vehicles have been developed for 14 years along carriage lines for family use and American roads. They are not copies and are right in every detail, made in many styles to suit all tastes. You can see on that left-hand advertisement all the different styles that he did manufacture. Now, the car's pneumatic tires were very unusual for this day. Duryea was the first to use inflatable tires on automobiles. That is an absolutely incredible thing to note there, that he was the first to use inflatables. Changes in both design and mechanical features were made each year as Charles attempted to improve, again, what he called the scientific automobile. So you can see his patent there for a vehicle there on the side, and then another one there on the right-hand side. So these are two patents there for various 3-cylinder vehicles that he was manufacturing. And the tire, of course. Now, this is where it really gets interesting. And when you guys come into our museum, you'll see this tiller in person. And it's really it's an interesting thing. It's so different for the time. Again, he was thinking about what he wanted to do, not following what other people were doing. At this time, you were typically seeing a steering wheel, but he developed what he called the tiller. The tiller performed 3 functions: steering by moving the tiller left and right, speed by rotating the handle grip at the top, and gear selection by raising or lowering the same handle. In addition, the centrally located tiller could be used for right or left-hand drive equally well. So he thought this was he really just thought this was the best thing since sliced bread. And unfortunately, people really didn't think that way at all. They did not care about this tiller. They really wanted a steering wheel, which was what many other people were starting to develop at this time. So he was a little bit behind in the times, Charles, but he had some really neat ideas, and this tiller is for sure one of them. Another one of these improvements that he was making on his, quote, scientific automobile was the inclined kingpin, which he patented in 1900. And it's really the principle of modern steering geometry. It's really amazing. The kingpin is the hinge on which the wheels turn right and left. This development, tilting the pivot so that it points downward to the spot just in front of where the tire contacts the road, allowed wheels to track straight ahead instead of being deflected by each bump in the road, because of course the roads were unpaved and rough at this time. So it kind of kept you on a straight line, on the straight and narrow. Again, forward thinking, really ahead of his time. The Duryea Power Company operated in Reading from 1900 to 1907. In March of 1902, a flood damaged the factory and most of his completed vehicles, which was really a blow to Charles. Really became very depressed at this time, but he progressed forward and pushed through. But this added more financial burden to his company. It was already burdened. Even worse, dealers discouraged by the lack of new car deliveries dropped Duryea. Then, early in 1907, Charles fought to protect his holdings from a hostile takeover by some of his associates. I love the quote there. My first thought was to go on, sell the cars, and bring back the money to pay up any small debt that was pressing. But who was pressing? Then I woke to the truth. It was a move to grab the business. My worries to keep it going were over. So at this point, the plant was sold. And in 1908, the defunct Duryea plant was taken over by a man named Charles Middleby, who ended up copying Duryea's air-cooled engine design and manufactured Middleby cars there until 1912. So you can see the advertisement there, Duryea plant sold, $15,000 at for sale, and then you can see the air-cooled Middleby car advertising there on the right. But again, Duryea pressed on, and he started. Actually, I have one more photo here I want to show you guys of the Middleby. There we go. This is our museum's Middleby. This is the 1909 Middleby. So not only do we have Duryea vehicles, but we have Middlebys that were manufactured in the same building as the Duryea, which is a really cool connection there. But he started over, okay? Charles didn't let this stop him. He started over in a small shop at 32 Carpenter Street in Reading. This was a modest new location, but he designed simple and economical vehicles, like the one I'm going to show you next. What he coined everybody's vehicle, the buggy-yacht. It was an inexpensive high-wheeler buggy car. Now, again, this is 1907, 1908. He's behind on the times, unfortunately. Okay? These vehicles look very old-fashioned compared to what vehicles of 1907 are looking like at this time. People are making vehicles a lot fancier, a lot more appealing. This really just kind of does look like a high-wheeler with a high-wheeler car hybrid, which is really not attractive to people, unfortunately. But he proceeded on and continued to build vehicles for everybody, as I say. But you can see these were strong vehicles that really were really very reliable. You can see the guy there on the left-hand side photo on the bottom. He's driving that in the snow. Okay, so these things really stood the test of terrain and were super reliable for your everyday driver. Now, the design offered solid tire buggy wheels that were more reliable than the pneumatic tires of the 1901 Duryea. Now, back at this time, you have to remember, a flat tire occurred every 3 to 5 miles, approximately. That is crazy, okay? So people are getting flat tires all the time. The buggy yacht's high suspension gave buyers more dependability over the rough roads of 1907. Here we have our buggy yacht. This vehicle is in our collection. It sits, it's a permanent staple in our collection in the museum. This photo was taken at Duryea Day in the Boyertown Park many years ago. I love what he called this vehicle, the handsomest car on the market. So this is the Duryea Electra. Electra, excuse me, and the Electra is very, the Electra was very luxurious, okay? So it was priced around $625, fully equipped at that price. So, I mean, it was a luxury vehicle, but Charles still kept it affordable for the everyday person. So this Electra is really neat. I'd love to see one in person. We do not have one of these on display in the museum, but you can see the comparison between the Electra and the Buggy Yacht in that right or in that left-hand ad there. This is where things really get interesting. Duryea decided to, Charles decided to start manufacturing cycle cars. Okay, so these are three-wheeled motorcycle car hybrids. Okay, now he called these the biggest idea in the automobile industry. Okay, he was hooked on these things. He thought that this was going to be just the next best thing. They were priced at $400. They were manufactured in Philadelphia, and he was totally wrong. Okay, these were just not popular at all, but they're really neat looking. They are lightweight, economical three-wheeled cycle cars. You can see a couple of the ads there. Again, they were manufactured in Philadelphia by a company called Crescent Morris Company. They were contracted to manufacture the Duryea cycle car for Charles. Again, you can see there on the Duryea piece up top on his truck brochure, he actually manufactured trucks as well. He calls it the biggest idea in the automobile industry. He loved these cycle cars. He thought the Gem was just amazing, but they only were manufactured from 1917 to 1920. So they were very, very short-lived. Duryea Gem advertised about the advantages of the lightweight and efficient roller drive, the cantilevers and torsion spring suspension, and its, quote, years ahead, rational, practical, and simplified design. In many aspects, the design was ahead of its time. The Gem had a smooth bottom and air-streamed body for reduced wind drag, and this was at a time before streamlined auto design became popular. It was also fitted with an air filter for the carburetor before it was common practice. All these things, he came up with and he decided to use. The Gem could run 65 miles to the gallon and cost less than a motorcycle with a sidecar. 65 miles to the gallon at this time is really good. And the fact that it was less than the motorcycle and it was more of a vehicle, more of a car than a motorcycle, was attractive to some people. I should mention before I move on here, we have a Gem in our collection. It's one of my favorite pieces in our museum. It's a 1917 Gem, so it's one of the first that he built. And Gems are very rare. As I said, they were only manufactured for 3 years. We have, I believe, 1.5. We have one on display and a half of another one in our storage facility. So there are not many in the world. So it's really a rare piece in our collection. Rita Duryea, who's considered the young lady test driver. She was Charles's oldest daughter, and she learned to drive in 1901 when she was 15 years old. I mean, people today really aren't learning to drive when they're 15, let alone in 1901. So it was really incredible. Duryea was sure to point this out in his Duryea Power Company sales catalog. Again, he loved women. He loved the women's movement. He was very, very passionate about it. He was absolutely not only proud of his daughter, but also pleased with the ease with which Duryea automobiles could be driven for anyone, but especially for women. It was a common sight to see Rita driving around Reading in one of the brand new Duryea cars from the Duryea Power Company. Rita Duryea recalled, "I seldom drove the same car twice and had no opportunity to become accustomed to any particular car. The reason is obvious. The cars were made to sell and were shipped as soon as they were road tested, painted, and upholstered." And I love this other quote there at the top. I do not know who claims to be the first woman to drive an automobile, but I claim to be the first schoolgirl to drive. And I was probably among the first half dozen drivers of my sex. She is such an interesting person. I really recommend you guys, after this presentation, look her up. She is a heck of a woman. Really was a big supporter of her father's automobiles. She loved driving them around. She loved showing the schoolboys up and crank starting and, you know, driving these vehicles around. She was often betted against as far as if she could not drive them, and she always won the bet. She always left these young men humiliated, she says, in many articles that were written about her. So she's very, very interesting. I really encourage you guys to read about her in the future. In spite of Charles' efforts to promote his economical and efficient vehicles, he was constantly underfinanced. In addition to not having enough money, rather than identifying what was popular among automobile buyers and building to fit that demand, he vigorously promoted his practical designs and attempted to educate consumers about the virtues of his machines. So again, he didn't listen to what the automobile buyers wanted. He promoted his designs, he promoted his machines, and you got to give him credit for that, because he stuck to his guns. He did not give in to things that were happening at the time, and I really, you know, I give him a lot of credit for that. It wasn't what a lot of people were doing during this time. Charles Duryea was foremost an inventor and idealist with an eye to the future. Obviously, you guys can see that throughout this presentation. He always was looking to the future. He was an inventor of many things we use today. Although he spoke of introducing a new, quote, compact Duryea, the Gem was his last effort to manufacture his own vehicles. So Charles did remain heavily involved with automobiles for the rest of his life and continued as an automobile engineer consultant. So he was the technical editor for the Automobile Trade Journal for 15 years. He wrote articles and editorials for numerous other publications as well. He was frequently used as an advisor on the topic of automobile engineering and was recognized as a respected authority on the topic. So he was a really respected man throughout his whole life. You can see there on the left-hand portion of the screen his historical marker in Springfield, Massachusetts. Really famous in that area of Massachusetts, of course. In 1938, on September 28th, he died in Philadelphia at the age of 76. He's buried in the Ivy Hill Cemetery. His wife, Rachel, survived him by 4 years, and they had 3 children. Rhea, of course, Grace, and a son, Merrill Duryea. So Charles just had an incredible life. Side note about him and his brother's relationship, they never did speak again after Frank went back to the Midwest. They did not speak again after that point, but Frank also went on to be very successful in automobile manufacturing. We have 7+ Duryea vehicles in our collection. I say that because we have parts of more than 7. Probably altogether we have more like 9 if we put them together, but we have 7 whole Duryeas in our collection, which is one of the largest collections of Duryeas in the world. That's really what we're known for, is our large collection of Duryeas. Here is a really amazing photo of every Duryea in our collection except for one, I believe. So you can see the tiller there on the steering. You can see the design that I showed you on those patents. And you can see the buggy out there towards the end. You can see the top roof there, so to speak, of that buggy yacht. So please come in, see these vehicles in person. They're incredible. and we'd love to show you around. Charles was an amazing, amazing man. So we're really proud to have these vehicles in our collection. And that's it. I'm going to go back to a regular screen here.
Terrific, Autumn. We did have some questions come through.
Okay.
We're intriguing people here. The first one was about one of those, the high wheel bikes. Have you ever ridden one, and how difficult are they to actually maneuver?
Have I ever driven one?
Yes.
Oh, Lord, no. So the thing with the high wheel is they were very, very difficult to ride. So you mentioned flipping. Most people did. It was called taking a header. It was very, very common. They were super dangerous. You got on by a little mount that was about this big. And I think just pray to God, you know, that you didn't fall off. No, I've never ridden one. I'd love to, maybe, in the future.
Yeah, I would just love to see a video of someone trying to get onto it because they seem so difficult to navigate.
You should Google that, Kelly. You can see those videos. It's pretty funny.
That's great. Someone else wants to know how Duryea's timeline compared with Henry Ford's, if they were at the exact same time and like if they were rivals.
Okay, so I'm going to say that, you know, Henry Ford didn't really put out his first vehicle until I think 1911, maybe a couple years before that. So Charles was ahead of that. Charles was doing these things way before Henry Ford. And you have to think, Henry Ford is always noted as, you know, the first of a lot of things with automobiles, but truly Charles was really what Henry Ford is known for is the assembly line. But he wasn't even the first to use the assembly line. He just perfected it. So as far as the timeline goes, I'd say really Henry Ford was after. Charles had started these things before Henry Ford.
Okay, good to know. Matthew was very surprised throughout this whole thing. There's lots of things in here that he learned, and
Matt's a volunteer at the museum, so
he was asking about the use of coil springs and how those are especially how he was ahead of his time with the coil springs.
Yes, he was.
Also said did not realize that Middleby bought the Duryea Power Company plant, nor did he know about the air filter, and then he'll have to investigate our car to see if he can find it.
I would love for him to do that. As far as, you know, I said at the end, you know, we'd love to show you guys around. Matt is a wonderful volunteer. I have Jim's on here as well. He's another one of our volunteers. So when you guys come in, you know, they can explain all these things. You show those mechanical aspects to you guys. I didn't even touch on half of what Charles did. This man had patents and invented like literally almost 100 things. So look into it more if you're you know interested in this. It just keeps going on.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot.
He also did point out that Ford built in the early 1900s.
Oh, did he? Okay.
He wants to know, is there a count of how many gems were actually produced?
I think the last count that I've heard is under 15. So they're very rare.
And Ed also verified Henry Ford was marketing vehicles right after the turn of the century.
So I should point out here, as far as my Henry Ford knowledge, I don't have a lot of Henry Ford knowledge. To be honest, he's not super interesting to me, but I don't know a lot about him. So I actually appreciate you guys letting me know, because I'm not really keen on Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm. You're getting lots of thank yous, and Matt says Autumn rocks as usual.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
And I do think that was all of the questions that came through. So now I am going to let you unmute yourself if you would like to speak any questions or have any comments. No? All right. I think we are good then. You have a little game with tickets that you wanted to do at the end?
Yes. So what I usually do at this point is I ask everyone to, and you can just write Kelly, I suppose, or you can say it out loud, whatever's easiest for Kelly. Just let us know your birthday, and the person with the birthday closest to mine gets 2 free passes to the museum. So if you guys want to send that in chat or, you know, whatever, let's figure that out now, and I'll see who wins the free passes.
How about May 12th and November 6th?
Okay.
We can't find the chat.
Can't find the chat.
It's okay. I'm going to write these down. May 12th, November. Uh-huh.
I had an August 23rd, January 26th, and April 7th. Anybody else?
Nope. All right.
I think that's it.
So it's going to be
Did you get March 3rd? We just got a March 3rd.
March 3rd. Okay, March 3rd. Is that everyone? Drum roll. It
May
is.
23rd. There's a May
What?
23rd as well. May 23rd.
Okay, May 23rd. So it's going to be August 23rd. My birthday is July 11th, and I'm pretty sure I'm not good at math, isn't my forte, but I'm pretty sure that's the closest. So who said August, whose birthday was August 23rd?
That was Penny.
Penny, I will be sending you 2 free passes to the museum.
Awesome. And do you need her email? I can send that over to you afterwards.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. If you want to send email or however we want to work that, Kelly, you and I can figure that out afterwards, and we'll get Penny those passes.
All right, great. Congratulations, Penny.
Yes, yay.
Yay. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming out. This was lots of fun. I learned a lot that I had no idea about. So who knew this was such an important area in the automobile history?
How about it? It's really cool. Right in our backyard.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming out. Autumn, thank you so much for joining us. You did a great job.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much,
Thank you.
Kelly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.